Shares of HIMSS and HERS are down 30% early in trading on Monday morning after a partnership with Novo Nordisk fell apart. Now, this is pretty breaking news. We're just a couple of hours into this, but I want to go through everything that we know so far. And the way to think about this as a HIMSS and HERS investor is this is not the kind of news that I like to hear, but I do think we need to take a step back and think about what HIMSS and HERS is building, what their position is in the market, and how much they're actually reliant on Novo Nordisk. One of the things that bears and bulls often get wrong about this company is they're talking about different things. The bears are thinking that this is just a GLP-1 company. It's a weight loss company. That's not really true. In fact, that's not even 50% of their business. Yes, it's a huge growth business, but I'll get to some of the other big growth businesses they have. And then the bulls think that companies like Novo Nordisk are not a big deal. This is a big deal. As a shareholder, I want to have HIMSS and HERS be partnering with every pharmaceutical company out there. I want them to have a supply of everything that could possibly be available to their customers. But that's not the way that disruption works, and that's not the way that this business is going to play out. So we need to take a long-term view, and that's what I want to do today. And if you look, yes, today, the stock is down 30%. But let's look at year-to-date. Stock is up 86.6%. That's even after today's drop. And you can see this crazy volatility that we went through in February. A year, it's up over 100% even after today's drop. So take a step back and think about where this company is going and what your long-term thesis is. When I first covered HIMSS and HERS on asymmetric investing, it was before GLP-1s even came out on the platform. But I thought the company had the opportunity to be an aggregator in healthcare, to be the touch point the customers actually go to answer their medical questions. Nothing about this announcement changes that. The questions that I had about HIMSS and HERS, about their operating practices, about compounding, about the way that they prescribe drugs, those are fundamental questions that I had. Those are still there today. But let's go through everything that you need to know today. And I'll put some time markers below if you are familiar with exactly what was announced. I'll start with that, and then we'll get to what the strategic outlook for HIMSS and HERS is long-term. My name is Travis Hoium. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content. And don't forget to subscribe to Asymmetric Investing, my newsletter. There's a link on screen and a link in the show notes. That's where I'm covering my asymmetric portfolio. I do much bigger deep dives than I can do here on YouTube. And you can get all my thoughts straight to your inbox. That asymmetric portfolio is absolutely crushing the market. Even after this drop in HIMSS and HERS, this was one of the biggest positions, had grown to be one of the biggest positions in the portfolio. But this may actually be closer to a buying opportunity than it is a panic opportunity. I also want to thank this video sponsor, FinChat. I'm going to actually use them throughout this video. And one of the things I'm going to use is some of their transcript features and their AI features, because that makes it really easy to go back and say, you know what, how big a deal is weight loss to HIMSS and HERS business? What has management said about that in their conference calls or at conferences? So I'll dig into that in just a second. But let's start with the stock move, and I'll just go back to that. Shares are now down 30%. We're about an hour into trading as I'm recording. And this is the reason why. Novo Nordisk announced that they are terminating collaboration with HIMSS and HERS due to concerns about their illegal mass compounding and deceptive marketing. The big fear is that this illegal allegation is something that they're going to actually pursue, that this is going to lead to lawsuits. I have no idea where exactly that would lead, but that's something the people who have questioned HIMSS and HERS have been worried about for quite a while. So to be determined exactly what happens there. But let's go back to what was originally announced, and this is from April 29, 2025. Basically, HIMSS and HERS and Novo Nordisk agreed to bundle their services. This was not a traditional partnership between the two companies. Actually, Novo Nordisk Pharmacy directly was going to access the HIMSS and HERS platform. And then HIMSS and HERS was going to bundle their membership and all the things like clinical support, nutrition guidance, 24/7 care, all those things all in one place. And then actually the Novo Pharmacy was going to deliver Wegovy to customers. That was the way that this is going to work for $599 per month. So that's the context with which you need to look at an announcement like this. So now they announced today that they are ending this partnership. Collaboration of over 1 month has ended because of illegitimate knockoff versions of Wegovy that put patient safety at risk. They keep talking about these knockoff drugs. This is compounded drugs. There was actually an interview with HIMSS and HERS former head of their pharmacy, and they said, we get our active ingredients from the same places as Novo Nordisk. I'll get to that in just a second because they do call out some of their Chinese supply here, and then says that they're going to keep working with telehealth companies, but obviously are calling out HIMSS and HERS specifically. Now they go back to the reason that HIMSS and HERS was selling compounded GLP-1s in the first place. That was the shortage that was happening in the market, particularly for semaglutide, and that allowed them to sell a compounded version. But they said that, hey, you know what, we're off shortage, so we should be selling our branded products. And what seems to be kind of the argument between the two companies is what role compounded versions play in the future of GLP-1s. Now, compounding GLP-1s and compounding many treatments is not illegal. It is also not uncommon. A few months ago, I had an infant that was sick. We had to actually go to the children's hospital to get a compounded treatment for him. That was not something that was available at CVS or Walgreens. So these are not things that are uncommon, but obviously as a big pharma company with a branded solution with Wegovy, Novo Nordisk doesn't want to have these compounded solutions to be widely accessible to users. Now, the reason that you would have compounded solutions is Wegovy is not all that flexible in the way that it's administered. So if you need a dosage that's in between the available dosages or smaller than the available dosages, that's when you would get to a personalized or compounded solution. That's at least the theory around the way that it should work. Expect a lot more conversation about this, particularly from HIMSS and HERS and the way that things are operating. But that's the first thing to keep in mind. The second is that based on Novo Nordisk's investigation, the semaglutide active pharmaceutical ingredients that are in knockoff drugs, as they call them, so compounded treatments, are manufactured by suppliers in China, and they are not authorized or approved for the manufacturing processes by the FDA. Now, again, I don't know exactly what the veracity of those claims are, but HIMSS and HERS at least has said that they get their supply from the same companies as Novo Nordisk. This is now a sizable public company. So if they're not going through that work, that would be a big red flag. We don't yet know that that's actually the case. But does this ultimately lead to a lawsuit from Novo Nordisk? Again, we'll see where things end up. From a financial perspective, the reason this is a big deal is because management said that weight loss is going to be a $725 million business in 2025. This is as of the first quarter of 2025. So through a first full quarter, we also knew that the semaglutide shortage was going to be over, so they were going to have to move to other solutions. They show some of these here. They're oral weight loss solutions, personalized semaglutide, so they have not been shy about saying, hey, we're going to continue to do this. And then liraglutide is expected to be coming later this year. But at the midpoint, you're talking about a 60% growth rate, and that's really what investors are counting on. That's why the stock has done as well as it has over the past year or so. But this is where I think there's a lot of questions about how much is GLP-1s, how much is something like Wegovy actually driving the company's growth and profitability. And we got a little bit of an indication at a recent conference. This is at the 53rd annual JP Morgan Global Technology, Media, and Communications Conference. And this was their CFO that was talking, and he said that this is something they've talked about before. The 2030 target is for $6.5 billion worth of revenue, and personalized products are going to go from 15% to 60%. And personalized products, which is things like compounded semaglutide, has gone from 15% to over 60% in the first quarter. But look at these other products. And this is what I want to highlight, is that this is an important partnership, but it's not the only thing that HIMSS and HERS has going on in their business. This is an aggregation company, meaning they're pulling demand together. When you're looking for a solution like weight loss, you're probably not going to go to Novo Nordisk. You're going to go to HIMSS and HERS. So their job is to connect you then with the solutions that are available and the best solution for you, not just to Wegovy. We have things like men's dermatology is growing over 45% a year. Women's dermatology is more than doubling. Oral weight loss, I talked about that solution as another one of the competing products to Wegovy. That growth is well into triple digits, they say. So again, this is all from the AI summary on fiscal.ai. It's super easy to go in and just see what's the big things that I need to know about this conference. But here's the other thing you have to keep in mind with HIMSS and HERS. This is not just a one product company, especially not one product in one segment of their business. The idea with an aggregator is to pull that demand together and then offer a lot of different solutions. So they've moved from sexual health to dermatology to mental health, weight loss. Coming soon, you have testosterone, menopause, longevity, sleep, preventative medicine. The growth opportunity is not just in selling more Wegovy. So if you're bullish on HIMSS and HERS like I am, it's not because of one single product. It's because of the platform that they're building and the fact that they're able to pull all this demand together and provide more and more solutions. Think about all the things that they have acquired over the past year, or the recent hires that they've had in artificial intelligence. That's to offer more solutions. They bought a lab testing company, an at-home lab testing company, a peptide company. They raised $1 billion and hired some key AI talent to be able to offer artificial intelligence answers and solutions to people 24/7. That is building a platform that pharmaceutical companies are going to need to access. So right now, Novo Nordisk is trying to protect their position in the market. They're going after companies that are compounding because they don't like that level of competition, whether it's price competition or supply competition. They also aren't going to like the fact that competing products are going to be starting to go generic more year after year. Liraglutide, I mentioned, is something that's coming. There's other products that are going to be coming by the end of the decade. So they need to maximize their profits on Wegovy before this becomes a commoditized product. That's just the reality of the market. So this partnership was a little bit tenuous to begin with, it certainly seems like, and the fact that it was ended just a month in tells you that there was something that was kind of off from both sides. But I think at the end of the day, this is a bump in the road for HIMSS and HERS. And unless we see evidence in their subscriber numbers, do these continue to grow? If they do, then that tells you that they have the power in the healthcare business, not Novo Nordisk. Do those subscribers keep paying more, spending more revenue? If they are, that tells you that they're happy with their treatments and their solutions. And does HIMSS and HERS continue to grow their revenue at an incredibly fast rate? I mentioned that guidance of about 60% growth in 2025. Are they able to hit that or even beat it and improve their profitability? If they are, it will tell you that this platform, this aggregation solution, is working as investors should hope. And this is the real disruption in the medical business. Just like media content before it, just like online shopping, in industry after industry, we have seen the power go from supply. The big brands that you would see at grocery stores or liquor stores, that was where the power was in the 80s, in the 90s, even into the 2000s. But the internet brings a different dynamic to the market. The power goes to demand. It goes to companies like Netflix that are the front door to content. People choose to interact with Netflix. They're not choosing to interact, and they're choosing Netflix over Nickelodeon or ESPN or the Disney Channel. I think the same thing is going to happen in healthcare. People are going to choose to interact with HIMSS and HERS, and that's going to give them more power over supply in the market, because those suppliers, those pharmaceutical companies who have been able to charge whatever they want for decades, are going to have to reach those customers. And if they want to reach customers, HIMSS and HERS right now is the fastest growing place to do that. If they want to rely on traditional doctors and traditional pharmacies, that's fine. But I think the growth is clearly in platforms like HIMSS and HERS. That's why I think there's such big disruptive potential. That's why I think announcements like this are a blip in the road. But we'll see what happens over the next few hours, the next few days, see what HIMSS and HERS says, not only in response to this, but also on their next conference call. I'm going to be watching that very closely. So subscribe here on YouTube for all my content if you want to keep up on HIMSS and HERS. And then also check out my newsletter, Asymmetric Investing. Like I said, there's a link on the screen and a link in the show notes. And thanks to fiscal.ai, go to fiscal.ai/ASYM to check that out for free for 2 weeks. Let me know if you have any thoughts or comments in the comment section below. Obviously a wild day for HIMSS and HERS, but I am not selling anything today. But let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you here next time.